Today we're going to be talking about dividing segments proportionally, meaning we're going to take a segment and split it up into equal parts. Depending on the question, depends on how many parts we'll be splitting it up into. When we're talking about this, at times we're going to be referring to what's called a directed line segment, just meaning I know where the start is, I know where the stop is, and I know the direction that I would be traveling through. So we're going to take a look at this example, and it says we're going to find the coordinates of point P along the directed line segment so that the ratio of AP to PB is 1:3. So this ratio part right here, this is kind of huge. All right, our goal is to find P so that when we actually plot it out, it's going to split the segment up into a ratio of 1:3. So first thing I would say is let's graph the points out just so we can see where they're located and give us a better idea of what we're going to be dealing with. Okay, so there's 2, -5, and then we have the coordinate 10, -1. So if we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, down 1, there's point B, and the segment that we're dealing with is the segment that's connecting A to B. So we have some steps, and if we can kind of think of it in this order, I think it'll make these kind of problems a little bit easier. So the very first thing we need to do is figure out how many units are in each partition, and that's coming from this ratio part. So they're telling us if we have to split this up into a ratio of 1:3, I always think whenever I see that ratio 1:3, or sometimes they'll do something like this using that ratio symbol, I always think attach a variable. So it's like saying 1 of something and 3 of something. So I'm wondering how many somethings, how many parts am I going to be putting this into? So this is telling me I have a total of 4 parts. So I want to split that segment up into a total of 4 parts. And where I put point P, so P is going to be located, since it wants it in a 1:3 ratio, it's saying, okay, I need to put P 1 part the way out of a total of 4 total parts. So I want to keep that in mind. Okay, so step two, it says determine the rise and the run of the line segment. So rise and run, I hope we're thinking slope. But the big thing with this is don't reduce slope. Okay, so if we look at the rise is the change in y. So if I look at the change in my y coordinates, I have a -1 minus a -5. And when I simplify that, I get a total of 4. Okay. When I look at the run, and now your run is your change in your x coordinates. So I'm looking at point B is starting at 10. Subtract out point A, which is at 2, and that's going to give me 8. So what that's showing me here is here's my change in my y values compared to the change in the x values, but don't reduce it. Okay, now step 3 is saying multiply the rise by the ratio from step 1. All right, well, that ratio that we have from step 1, if we think about it, we wanted it to go 1 part out of 4 parts. So if I were to turn this into that ratio that they're looking for, or that fractional value, it's like saying a 1:4 fraction. Okay, so I'm going to take that rise, and the rise we have is 4, and I want to multiply that by that ratio, that 1 out of 4 parts. So when I multiply that out, I get a total of 1. Now our next step says, okay, we'll take that answer and add it to step 3. Take our answer from step 3 and add it to the y coordinate from A. So if I'm looking at the y coordinate from A, that's a -5. And to that, I want to add that answer of 1, which is now going to give me a -4. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. It's just this time we're going to multiply the run by the ratio. Okay, so the run that we had, that change in our x value, was a total of 8. And I'm going to multiply that run by our ratio, meaning I only want a quarter of that run. I only want a quarter of the change in our x values. And that's going to give us a 2. Okay, so I'm going to take that, and I'm going to add that 2 to our x-coordinate from A. So our x-coordinate was 2. I'm taking our change that we found from step 5, and I'm adding that. And that's going to give me 4. Now, things to keep in mind. Because this is the x-coordinate, this is like showing us our new x location. Since back up, if we review, back up into step 4, that was our y-coordinate, what this is doing is now giving us a new y location. So if you look at our final step, it says, okay, we'll take those two, put them together, and write a coordinate. Okay, well, I need to always write our coordinates as x comma y. So I'm going to take our x-coordinate, our step 6 answer. Then I'm going to take our step 4 answer. And what this has done is found point P. So if we go back up and we take a look at our graph, and I plot out that coordinate 4, -4. So I count over 1, 2, 3, 4, down 4, and I put a point, I can now see there's point P. Okay, well, if we go to check this and we see, well, is this going to make sense? Well, think about what we did to begin with. We calculated our slope. If I look back at step 2, rise over run is a slope. 4/8 is our slope. So if I were to look at this entire line segment, this is like saying I'm counting up 4 and I'm counting over 8. But we wanted to split that up into 4 total parts. So if I look at the change from A to P, I can see a change going up 1 unit over 2 units. And again, let's go back and connect it to this problem. Here is that up 1, and here in step 5 is our over 2. So what we've just done is figured out I only wanted to move it a quarter of the way. I only needed a quarter of the slope. So if I keep doing that, up 1 over 2, watch what's going to happen. So up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, one more time, up 1 over 2. Notice what we've just found. We said we could split our segment into 4 even parts. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's also telling us that we wanted to put point P so that it was in a 1:3 ratio. Well, if I look at where point P is, there's one section going from A to P. And if I look at the sections from P to B, well, I have 1, 2, 3. That's showing me a 1:3 ratio. That's located my coordinate. And now we've just divided our segment up proportionally, even sections, and we found that 1:3 ratio. I hope you found this helpful. Again, if you're finding these helpful, hopefully you're going to like and subscribe. Have a great day.